Rockin' the Range 2018, I'm Lou Brutus, and when the great James Brown passed away years ago, the mantle for hardest working man in show business probably passed on to the band Red Sun Rising, because I don't know who your booking agent is, but it might be Satan. You guys have worked harder, I think, the last several months than anybody. Ryan Williams is my guest. Who books you guys? I swear some nights I'm on the air and I'm
APA,
looking at like
Andrew Buck, we call him Satan, actually.
It's like, let's see, Red Sun Rising is in Idaho tonight, and they're also in Chicago, and they're like,
yeah,
what the hell?
Man, they keep us busy. Yeah, we look at the routing ourselves, and it's a nightmare. The funny thing is that we hired a driver who we knew, who was a friend, who we thought, let's get somebody we know, it'll be more fun. And I kind of gave him this version of the story, the driving story, like, it's a blast. You're going to have a great time with the band. I don't think the guy has slept in a week.
It'll be easy.
It'll be easy. You only have to drive from Delaware to Detroit, and then, Spokane, Washington, back to New York, yeah.
How do you guys deal with that, and how do you, it's an obvious question, but how do you stay alive and thrive and go out and give your all when you've, been moving for 15 hours?
Man, you got to learn that the hard way, I think. We used to not. You got to watch yourself, just like anything else. You got to take care of your body. You have to rest. You have to know which nights are the nights to, go into your bunk and not go out and be crazy. Yeah, we've definitely learned that the hard way. There used to be plenty of festivals where I'd roll right out of my bunk and have to get to the stage to play because of, what we did the night before. So.
Well, Thread has been out for a little while now, and I would be very curious to hear the kind of feedback you're getting, not from, people back here, but I mean people out there, people who are fans and buy stuff.
It's been great so far. It really has been, and I know we threw everybody kind of a curveball, but it's only a curveball in relation to Polyester Zeal, the first album. Yeah. This is just another side of the band. We have the other three guys now, Dave, Pat, and Rick, who we toured with, and we thought, we have this bond now, and we've been all over the world together. When we write this album, let's write it from scratch. And so we knew it was going to be a little bit different, but right now it's great. It seems to be on in the up and up, and people are really taking it on and accepting it. And
I would have to think that you feel probably a lot stronger today, even more so than just a few months ago, because with the reaction Deathwish has gotten, it's been huge. So if there was any trepidation about the changes, it's probably evaporated by now.
Yeah, it has, and yeah, that's great. That's actually really accurate. As proud of it and as confident in the album as we were, it was still Deathwish was the example of how diverse this album is, and that's why we led with it. Like, this is what you're going to get, is something that changes and something that's constantly moving. And we were, and the other thing about the sophomore album versus the first album is the first album nobody knew we were, so we were slowly getting reviews and people were checking it out. This time everybody's got an opinion, and you have to wave through some of the negative, but there hasn't been a lot of it. It's been great.
Did you ever find yourself second-guessing yourself or overthinking things through the process?
No, not this time. I think one of the big things is, as people interviewed us before we went in, said sophomore slump, right? We talked about it, and we said, we're not going to let this affect us at all. In fact, I think it was almost motivation to experiment a little more, and just as we knew, as long as we loved it, we were going to be happy. I'd rather fail and love what I'm doing, and I love this album. I'm really proud of it.
Well, and again, plenty of bands have had sophomore slumps, but plenty of people did not, because they took the time to, make sure they had a good sophomore record.
Yeah, I didn't want that concept, that idea that, the first one was so good, so we got to cling to that. That was going to really affect the integrity of the writing, I think. I don't want that to be the safety net that we found. Like, this works, let's always do that. That's boring to me. And I think fans see that. My favorite bands of all time change constantly. They take, new direction, and they grow.
Give me some examples.
Tool. We're here tonight. They haven't had an album out in 15 years. I mean, that's a risk. And even when they do, they drop something new on you. Lateralis was incredibly different from Automan. System of a Down. You never knew what to get. I remember the first time I heard BYOB, it had been a time since the last album, and not
BYOB WTF.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn, what are they doing?
What are they doing? Right? And it grew on me, and after it grew on me, it became my favorite thing they ever did was that album. So
yeah.
I like that.
Give me some other examples of people that you think have pushed the envelope and been able to have a nice long string of creation.
Man, Alice in Chains, Muse is a really good example. I mean, Metallica, of course,
Yeah.
one of my favorites, and they bounce back from a lot of diversity, right? Especially like post Napster, post Saint Anger, and then here they are on top of the world dropping music that reminds me of
some of the best stuff they've ever done.
It's
That
amazing.
Last Rider is one of the best albums they've ever done.
It's incredible. It really is, and they're one of my favorites of all time. But that's just an example, man, of the great guys doing great work. They just keep swinging. They swinging for the fences.
And again, what is it? And again, it doesn't matter if it's a new band on a sophomore record or somebody who's been out for 30 years. How is it that you continue to create interesting stuff and not burn out or run out of ideas? Because some people run out of ideas after one song.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that. What I can tell you is that we're kind of always writing, and that's been a passion of mine. I think more than I ever wanted to be a great guitar player, more than I wanted to sit down and put that kind of work in. Somehow I fell in love even more with this process where I get to create new things and try new riffs out and gather inspiration from these bands. And I think the thing about us is we don't put it out unless we love it.
Yeah.
And we go through a lot. The 11 songs on the album are the songs you hear. You didn't hear the other 30, But I don't know. There's something about being creative. It's like that muscle, that creative muscle that you have as an artist on the road almost starts to atrophy. And I feel like every time we create something like this, I rediscover who I am as a musician, who I even am as a person. It changes kind of your life just to go in and work that way. There's just something about being creative fuels me anyway.
I think you strike me as one of those types of people who loves the craftsmanship that goes into making a record. Some people, they make a record because they have to make a record and they have songs, they want to bang it out. And not that they half-ass it, but they don't enjoy the process, the hand tooling that can go into making a record. You sound like you like to get in there and get your fingernails not dirty, but you know what I mean.
Sure, yeah. Somebody asked me just a couple minutes ago, they said, what's with like the 70s vibe of the album? They were saying like retro, and I don't think it's retro. We just had so many weapons at our disposal, so many amazing vintage amplifiers and classic guitars in the studio we got, and a producer, Matt Hyde, who loves this stuff as much as I do. And as opposed to going with something we could have dialed in digitally instantly, we'd set up 2 Marshalls and a Mesa and run them all simultaneously, and or like a vintage JMP with something else. We were experimenting with this classic incredible equipment until we went boom, that's how this song sounds. And then even then we'd work a little harder on it because we were in love with the equipment. I mean, each one of these pieces had like a soul to it. I got to play Stevie Ray Vaughan's Esquire on Fascination. That clean guitar you hear is his Esquire.
How?
They handed it to me in the studio. This guy named Tony who owns the Sonic Ranch in El Paso. Amazing studio. And he's this eccentric hippie guy. I love him. He's giving me J. Krishnamurti books, and we're talking about Zen, and I dig the guy, totally dig him. And he has one of the most amazing collections of gear, and he hands me this. He bought it from Stevie Ray Vaughan himself while he was still alive, and it was an Esquire from the 50s. And I plugged it in, and it had it had soul. It didn't sound like anything I'd ever heard. And I said, well, here's our clean sound, at least for this song. And that's kind of how we went with this record. So it's very pure. Nothing is coming from the computer on this one besides the mixing.
I would think with vintage gear like that and a bunch of guys who have a deep sense of musical history, that at times you're sort of screwing around with things and it's like, oh, I got the fuzz tone that Eric Clapton used on Motherless Children, or hey, wait, listen to this,
Absolutely.
like music nerds talking music nerd shit.
Yeah, I forget, and that's the thing too. That's the thing about that process. I forgot how big of a music nerd I was, because I really have been always a gear guy. And we were on the road for so long, and I have my rig, and I play those same songs, and I go play the show, and I love it. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. We get to see the world and meet these amazing people that we've got this connection with musically. But I got to go back in, and it's like imagine a car guy who hasn't driven in 3 years. That's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah.
Stuff,
And then you're not getting behind some piece of crap. You're hey, here's a
Right.
1956
Shelby Cobra.
Yeah,
and
there you go.
Right,
Well, that'd
yeah.
be 60s, but sure,
60s.
yeah.
I don't know cars as well, but yeah, that's exactly.
I know Mustangs.
That's exactly what it was, and you know, there's more room for error with those things. You got to be meticulous, and you have to respect them. And there's a loving relationship back and forth with some of these vintage instruments, because it's easy to pull it out of tune, and it's easy to get it to not sit in the mix right. But I think if you take the time and you really love it, you can pull something off that's great. And like I said, everything instrumentally on this record is just it's the instrument itself. There's no tricks.
Give me an example. The last time you heard a song, could have been a recent song, could be an old song, something that reminded you of why you just love music.
You know what? I had this kind of moment the other day, besides watching Tool again, which blew my mind. But I really did have like a eureka moment. We were playing Carolina Rebellion, and right where I stood hours earlier.
You gotta stop playing these small, crappy gigs, by the way.
I know.
You gotta play for some people.
These bands no one's ever heard of. It's Tool, and so I go out, and right where I stood earlier, a couple hours earlier, same stage left is Jerry Cantrell, and I haven't seen Alice in Chains in years and years and years. In fact, I always reference them and I love them, but I haven't sat down and just listened in a while, you know? You get caught up in your own thing. And I watched Jerry Cantrell, and it dawned on me, he's like the David Gilmour or Eric Clapton of grunge. He's just smooth, grimy, soulful, amazing guy. And he stepped out in front of the crowd, and he just slowly and you couldn't take your eyes off him. It was ripping, and it was inspirational, and it reminded me of A, why I do this in the first place, and B, it's like, you know, the next time I'm second guessing putting 3 minutes of a guitar section into a show, you know, I'm maybe we go for it, because it was inspiring.